Call Matt Chorley.
And Patrick Maguire.
You saw Lindsay Hoyle yesterday and still haven't asked him to record my name.
I will commit on air right now that I'll get him to record you a jingle on Friday, because we're obviously going to be in Chorley on Friday for the build-up to the G7 Parliamentary Speakers Summit that he's hosting there.
Jingle makes it sound like he's going to do a full George Formby style ditty about me, but
well, talking of jingles, have you heard our jingles?
I have. I'm very impressed as a long-time listener. I was going to say first-time caller to TalkSport. I'd like to clarify, I've never rang TalkSport. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just not my bag.
Anyway, let's take a listen.
Stay ahead of the game with instant insider knowledge and erudite opinion.
What a way to do it!
Matt Chorley's Westminster Transfer Deadline Day on Times Radio. Get in.
Get in indeed. So yes, it's Reshuffle Speculation Day. We think it's on, Henry.
Looks like it's on.
Thank you very much, Henry. Patrick, it's on.
It is definitely on.
It is definitely on.
That's what I'm hearing from sources.
After we go off air, that's basically what we're expecting, because Boris Johnson's got the small matter of PMQs imminently.
It's almost as if it's deliberate.
Yeah, he's trying to muck up our plans. What do we think, while we wait for Keir Starmer to pop up, what do you think he might go on today?
God, I mean, it's almost a sideshow today, isn't it? But the winter plan, the COVID winter plan yesterday, that's been looming large. Inflation figures this morning would very much tie into Labour's line of attack that this government isn't very kind to the wallets of working people. So I wouldn't be surprised if Keir Starmer tied that in. They've got an opposition day debate on universal credit this afternoon that even fewer Conservatives will now pay attention to than we're going to. So I imagine he'll...
Not least if they're hanging by the phone for a call tonight.
Although some of them might have much more free time after PMQs, so they might be able to pop in.
Here we go then. It's PMQs Unpacked. I should point out that both Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer are wearing a sort of sheaf of wheat in their buttonholes. I think it's Black British Farming Day.
Of all the days to have a reshuffle, so disrespectful.
Okay, here we go then. Let's go live to the House of Commons. Question number 1 from Keir Starmer.
Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in his comments about Emma Raducanu, a tremendous success in the US Opens, on the Battle of Britain and on the G7 Speakers Conference? Mr. Speaker, can I also offer my condolences to the Prime Minister on the loss of his mother? As I know firsthand, losing a parent is never easy. Mr. Speaker, how many extra hours a week would a single parent working full-time on the minimum wage have to work to get back the £20 a week the Prime Minister plans to take away from them in his universal credit cuts?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I think it's. I thank the Ronald for what his kind words. But on his substantive point about universal credit, Mr. Speaker, it is absurd because the Labour Party. I'll give you a statistic, Mr. Speaker. Every single recipient of universal credit would lose their benefits under Labour because they want to abolish universal credit, Mr. Speaker. And I think that this House and this party this government should be very proud of what we're doing and continue to do to support the low paid. And it was another Conservative institution, the living wage, Mr. Speaker, that increased the incomes of families on the living wage by £4,000 a head, Mr. Speaker. What they want to do, Mr. Speaker, is keep this country in lockdown, keep this country in furlough without moving forward at all.
Let's pause it there, which is what we do here on Times Radio. So, of the many options you went for, Keir Starmer's gone for universal credit. Labour were really hoping today was going to be a big day on the universal credit.
Yep, they had Jonathan Reynolds, the shadow working pensions secretary, doing the tour of the studios this morning, laying down the gauntlet to Tory MPs, saying, if you agree, as many of them do, that now is not the time to withdraw that £20 uplift, that they should join with the Labour Party this afternoon and vote with the opposition. I don't think a coherent, Keir Starmer's attack line was there, that's going to happen.
We should point out it's Rishi Sunak, the man who's taking away the £20 a week extra, which obviously he originally introduced, is sitting right behind Boris Johnson on the front bench. None of the main ministers on the front bench are wearing masks. I think there's a whip on the far end who did have a mask on the Tory benches, but all of the Labour side have got masks on. So that's a striking visual difference.
Also striking visually, no Dominic Raab, rumoured casualty of the reshuffle on the front bench.
That's a good spot. Well done. That's what you're here for, Patrick. That's why we pay you the big bucks. Let's go back to the House of Commons. Question 2 from Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister didn't answer the question. The Work and Pension Secretary seems to think it's an extra 2 hours a week. So let me make it even easier for the Prime Minister.
That's Therese Coffey he's talking about there.
Is the correct answer higher or lower than that?
Mr. Speaker, what I can tell the right honourable gentleman is that under this government, for the first time in decades, wages are rising, Mr. Speaker. Wages across the board are rising, and they're 4.1% up on where they were before the pandemic. In fact, I'm very pleased. Of course, what they want to do is to continue to take money in taxation and put it into benefits. We don't think that's the right way, Mr. Speaker. We want to encourage high wages and high skills, Mr. Speaker. And that is the difference between this government and the Labour Party opposite. I think it is a good thing. I think it's a good thing, for instance, that Costa Coffee is now paying 5% more than they were before the pandemic. And never forget, if we listened to Captain Hindsight, Mr. Speaker, Costa Coffee would still be closed.
Right, let's pause that there.
It's quite the accusation.
Can we get Costa Coffee on the phone and see if that is absolutely the case? Just to try and unpick, because it can get a bit complicated, it's basically why we do this. When Keir Starmer's talking about something the Work and Pension Secretary had or hadn't said. So early this week, Therese Coffey claimed that the £20 a week extra that you get on universal credit, if you lose that, it would only mean working 2 hours extra work every week. Making the point that most people, or the £10 an hour, so it's 2 extra hours. Explain why that's not true, though.
Because when you're extra, it's quite complicated and technical, which is ironic given that Ian Duncan Smith's idea of introducing universal credit was that it would simplify the benefit system, and clearly his successors don't understand it. But basically, there's a taper rate. And as such, I think it's 60. You'd only earn 63 pence in the pound for those additional hours you're working. So you'd have to work significantly more than the 2 hours.
I think one charity this week said it was something like 9 hours. It's because as you earn an extra pound in work, they take away some of your universal credit. So eventually you reach the point where you're earning all of your money rather than relying on the benefit system.
Interestingly, Boris Johnson, I don't really detect a coherent thread here from Boris Johnson. He's gone from, his first answer was, well, benefits claimants will be worse off under Labour because there'll be no universal credit at all, to now, offering the familiar attack on Labour as the party of welfare.
But it was interesting that his attack seemed to be all Labour's interested in is putting up taxes, which is obviously the thing that Boris Johnson announced he was doing last week, which is it's an interesting line of attack there. Maybe there was a slight air of Boris Johnson of, this makes no difference, this exchange. Nobody's going to see this on the TV later because I'm about to catapult Dominic Raab into the Thames. And that is ultimately what people are going to be speaking about tonight. Potentially, allegedly, it's on, apparently. Right, let's go back. I think this is question number 3 from Keir Starmer.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, it wasn't a difficult question. The answer to the question, maybe it's silly, they say. It's a silly question. How much would somebody working full-time on the minimum wage how many hours they'd have to work to make up for the cut, is apparently a silly question. The answer, I'll give the Prime Minister the answer to the question. It is much, much higher. A single parent could be a constituent working on the minimum wage, already working full-time, would need to work over 9 hours a week on top of their full-time job just to get the money back that the Prime Minister is taking away from them. Prime Minister, they are already working full-time. They've got kids. How on earth does the Prime Minister think they're going to find the time to work an extra 9 hours? In truth, Mr. Speaker, an extra day every week. How, Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I tell you what we're doing to support people on low incomes, not only with the living wage, but 30 hours of free childcare, freezing petrol duty, Mr. Speaker, extending the cost of heating allowance for 780,000 people across this country. But even more important than that, Mr. Speaker, for the low-paid, what we're doing is seeing encouraging measures to see their wages rise. We're investing in their skills, Mr. Speaker. We're investing in work coaches, Mr. Speaker. And there's a dividing line now between this government and the opposition. We want a high-wage, high-skill economy with controlled immigration, Mr. Speaker. And what they want is low wages, low skills, and uncontrolled immigration. That's what they stand for.
Let's pause it there. I mean, it's interesting, the politics of this. I mean, Labour clearly hoped this would gather. I remember speaking to people in the Labour Party over the summer. They really thought this was going to be the big row when we came back in September. That this was going to sort of build up, and in the end, Rishi Sunak will be forced into a U-turn. And that just doesn't feel like where we are.
And the reason for that politically is, and you had a kernel of that in that answer, the opposite, the dividing line Boris Johnson's trying to draw there between control and uncontrolled, be it spending or migration. In this case, spending. I think I was saying last week on this very programme that Rishi Sunak's approach to the public finances as a sort of retail politician is he thinks the most important thing for the Conservative Party is to be able to tell the public how they are paying for it. Even though any economist will tell you it's not that simple. And their gamble is politically that the public in 2024 or sooner will credit them with a higher degree of economic competence than the Labour Party, regardless of the impact on the wallet. And it's interesting. You say about Labour anticipating this will be a big row. It's sort of been superseded on the same turf by the national insurance row. But that's not to say ministers aren't worried this might come and bite them down the line.
It's interesting because we did some polling on this. YouGov did some polling on this a week or so ago, beginning of September, to ask what people thought about whether or not the extra £20 should be made permanent. At that point, 38% said that the extra £20 should be permanent. Another 18% said it should come to an end, but not yet. And only 29% supported it coming to an end next month. Although when you do the party breakdown, 45% of Tory voters said it should come to the end next month. Only 10% of Labour voters, only 27% of Lib Dems. Big Remain Leave split as well, 19% of Remainers, 41% of Leavers. Interestingly, a bit of a gender divide as well. 31% of men said it should come to an end next month, and only 26% of women. Younger people far less likely to support it than older people too. So it does cut across. But I suppose politically, having not really built up a sort of campaign over the summer so it becomes an explosive moment in the party, in a way that actually, I remember this happened in 2015, after the 2015 election.
With the working tax credits.
Yeah, and
yes.
actually that became a big thing. And some of those newly elected Tory MPs in 2015 actually did cause quite a stir. Heidi Allen was one of them. And that suddenly became a problem for the Tory party. And George Osborne, and that actually played a bit, sort of fed to in some of the debate in the run-up to the referendum.
Which is why staging a reshuffle when these big political questions would otherwise be being chewed over is, apart from anything else, I don't want to say good politics, but it's adroit politics.
Yeah, so on the front bench, we can see Rishi Sunak, Priti Patel is there, Jacob Rees-Mogg is there, Alistair Jack, the Scottish Secretary, is there, Liz Truss is there. But yeah, no sign of Dominic Raab on the front bench. Liz Truss, Priti Patel's having a right laugh about something on the front bench.
Dominic Raab is paddleboarding back to Isha, I'm told.
Right, let's go back to the House of Commons. This is question number 4 from Keir Starmer.
Let's test that right now. We've had 3 questions and the Prime Minister hasn't answered one of them. And it's obvious why. The truth is that these low-paid workers can't work longer hours to get back the money the Prime Minister's cutting from them. He knows it. They know it. Millions of working families will be hit hard, very hard, by the Prime Minister's universal credit cut. And the reason, Prime Minister, is this. Why would they have to work an extra 9 hours, a full day every week, to get that £20 back. It's because of his broken tax system. He's just said how good it is. So let's test it. After his national insurance rise, for every extra pound that these workers earn, his government will take more than 75 pence from them. That's why they have to work for 9 hours one day. Why is the Prime Minister? He's just said how he's going to raise wages, what he's going to do. That's the situation. Why is the Prime Minister making a bad situation worse for working people by hammering them with a cut to universal credit and a tax rise?
Let's just pause it there so I can bring you what can only be described as breaking news. A Downing Street source gets in touch to say the PM will today conduct a reshuffle to put in place a strong and united team to build back better from the pandemic. Yesterday, the PM set out his plan for managing COVID during the autumn and winter, but the government must also redouble our efforts to deliver on the people's priorities. The PM will be appointing ministers this afternoon with a focus on uniting and levelling up the whole country. So that just in from a Downing Street source confirming that Boris Johnson will carry out a reshuffle this afternoon. As Henry Zeffman told us earlier,
Looks like it's on.
it is indeed. Can we? If this isn't a good excuse to play one of our silly stigs. The reshuffle's on, everybody.
Get your fix of the transfer mix.
Oh, what a finish!
With instant reaction from the biggest names in the game. Matt Chorley's Westminster Transfer Deadline Day on Times Radio.
Yes, the reshuffle will start this afternoon. Witless speculation between now and then. Patrick Maguire.
Well, I was going to say the funny thing about this shadow cabinet, maybe in 5 years' time, this cabinet is every transfer deadline day aficionado in the footballing world. Remember that iconic scene every year where Harry Redknapp would hang out the window of his Range Rover. But actually, Mark Spencer, the chief whip, has been known to do that with his agricultural van. So I hope we get to see that before the day's out. Witless speculation? There's none comes more witless than the rumour currently setting my Twitter timeline and Westminster alight that Gavin Williamson, of all people, is going to be made Northern Ireland Secretary. Now, he was very close to the DUP when he was negotiating and overseeing their confidence supply deal with Theresa May. But, I'm vaguely aware that there might be a bit of stuff going on in Northern Ireland at the moment that maybe a minister of Gavin Williamson's, debated and debatable competence might not be best equipped to deal with. But who am I to say?
Well, we'll keep the witless speculation coming. I feel like we should finish off PMQs, despite it being essentially academic slightly. But anyway, let's go back to Boris Johnson in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, actually what we've done with our local housing alliance is increase by £600 the amount of money to be available to exactly the type of person that he mentions. But he attacks the plan, Mr. Speaker. He attacks our plan to fix the backlogs in the NHS that we announced last week. And I have to say, I thought it was utterly incredible that the party of Nye Bevan should have come to this House last Wednesday and voted against measures that would fix the NHS, Mr. Party. And Mr. Speaker, it's quite clear that this is now the party of the NHS. They simply do not have a plan, Mr. Speaker. They don't have a plan for universal credit. They want to abolish it, and they don't have a plan to fix the NHS or social care, Mr. Speaker.
Keir Starmer.
Let's hear from Keir Starmer
Mr.
again.
Speaker, an unfair tax rise which won't fix social care and won't clear the NHS backlog is not a plan, Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister pretends. He pretends he's no alternative but to hammer working people with tax rises and universal credit cuts. But that's not true. His approach means that a working single parent who's a qualified nurse would lose £1,143. A supermarket worker could lose £1,093. A teaching assistant could lose £1,081. But at the same time, the Prime Minister wasted billions on crony contracts, cut taxes for people buying second homes, and handed out super tax deduction for the biggest companies. That's not taking, Mr. Speaker, that's not taking difficult decisions, that's making political choices. So why is the Prime Minister choosing to take a tax system that's already loaded against working people and making it even more unfair?
Mr. Speaker, it is absolutely ridiculous that he should attack the government over salaries for nurses when we put them up by 3%, Mr. Speaker, on top of the 12.8% rise that we introduced, when we're hiring 50,000 more nurses, Mr. Speaker, and when we're just putting another £36 billion into the NHS and social care on top of the £33 billion that this government invested when we came into office. We are... Mr. Speaker, 1 in 10 of the people in this country is now on an NHS waiting list. They know that the NHS backlog needs to be fixed. They know that this government has a plan, and they know that Labour has got absolutely nothing to say.
Well, let's just pause it there. Slight rerun of last week's debate, Patrick, over what to do about social care.
Yes, Boris Johnson reprising his favourite line, which is Labour don't have a plan. Of course, Labour, Keir Starmer did sketch out the broad contours of a plan as to how to pay for social care earlier this week on a visit to a cafe in Lewisham. He said he wanted to raise capital gains tax, but obviously if you're Boris Johnson and you're at the dispatch box, such details are immaterial. And he obviously expanded that to say you have no plan for use of universal credit either, trying to cast Labour as that party of empty opposition, fence sitters, etc., etc. Regular listeners will be able to sing along by now. And then you heard from Keir Starmer in response, in his little peroration there, the by now also quite familiar attack line that he's trying to make stick before the next election, which is the Conservative Party are a party that are themselves profligate with public money, only in a way that betrays their, the fact that they're not in touch with their new electorate, and they're all about greasing the palms of their wealthy cronies with contracts and other goodies.
Yes, and I suppose that's the debate we've basically been having for at least the past 12 months, is that contrast they're trying to draw. As if you've just tuned in, the big news we can bring you is that there is going to be a reshuffle this afternoon. Boris Johnson, a Number 10 source, confirm it is hilarious. It's on the ticker on the BBC. Number 10 source confirms to the BBC. Yeah, we've all had that text message. We've all had that text confirming that a reshuffle will take place later today to level up Britain. We've just had this in from Henry Zeffman, chief political correspondent. No, we haven't. We'll get the latest from Henry when we can. Let's go back. We'll do some witless speculation as to what might happen in the cabinet reshuffle in a moment. Let's go back for the final exchange from PMQs.
I just wonder what the millions of people facing a £1,000 cut on low wages will think of that. This country's success is built by working people, but the tax system is loaded against them. The Prime Minister may not understand the pressures facing families across the country, but we do. And the reality is this: taxes on working people up, national insurance up, council tax up, energy bills, food prices, burdens on families up, up, up. The Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, needs to get real and understand the terrible impact of his decisions on working people across this country. Mr. Speaker, this afternoon he has the chance to change course, to vote with Labour to cancel a cut to universal credit, and then to stop clobbering working people with unfair tax rises. Will he do so?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me tell. I think you see the panto season has come early.
Quite something from Boris Johnson.
Which country?
Order. If it is, it's certainly behind you, Prime Minister.
Well, let me ask you, Mr. Speaker, since you're a man of great restraint and taste and judgment, which country has the fastest growth in the G7? Where is employment up, Mr. Speaker? Where are job vacancies at the highest level up, Mr. Speaker? As for wages, Mr. Speaker, they are up. Higher than they were before the pandemic.
I think that could probably do with a bit of work, that call in response.
Gentleman, very carefully over the last fortnight. I'm told that he has a 14,000-word essay in gestation, Mr. Speaker. I don't I don't know why he can't produce it right away. I mean, why does the world have to wait for the thoughts of Chairman Keir? Having listened to what he's had to say, his non-existent plan for benefits, for universal credit, his non-existent plan for health and social care, I can compress those 14,000 words to 4, Mr. Speaker. Vote Labour, wait longer. That's what he stands for, Mr. Speaker.
Well, there we are. That brings an end to PMQ. Some knockabout there, if nothing else, Patrick.
I didn't think Keir Starmer had that sort of frivolity in him, but there's a first time for everything.
He's a bit livelier. On the subject of the 14,000-word essay, I bumped into quite a senior Labour insider yesterday who was aware of the existence of the thing but hadn't got round to reading it yet.
And likewise, I saw a shadow cabinet minister who was none the wiser either.
But the sort of person who you might have thought might have read it by now,
if not written some of it.
Yes, exactly right.